former Minnesota Vikings legendary wide receiver Cris Carter has been in the news recently. Well, one, because he's been on a bunch of shows with Stephen A. Smith, and he's defending the Minnesota Vikings, which is cool. But he also ranked his top 5 wide receivers in Minnesota Vikings history. And let's just play what he had to say, and let's react to it together.
The all-time wide receivers in Vikings history, in order.
Jake Reed, number 5. I'm going to go with Anthony Carter, number 4. I'm going to go with Randy Moss, number 3. I'm going to go with a dude named Cris Carter, number 2. And they got a dude playing for their team now that is the number 1 dude.
But I wasn't expecting that because I would have put Unc number 1. That's big for him to say that. Cris Carter just said Justin Jefferson's 1. All-time in wide receiver Vikings history. He's 2, Randy Moss is 3.
Wow.
That's a big deal.
That is a big deal.
So that's Brandon Marshall, a former NFL wide receiver that was very productive in his time during the NFL, asking him those questions. And let's just take a look at these players and their successes with the Minnesota Vikings, because Cris Carter, does he make a good point? Does he not make a good point? Cris Carter, let's look at his stats for the Minnesota Vikings. 12 years as a Minnesota Vikings wide receiver. He's a Minnesota Vikings legend. We can't deny that. In his Minnesota Vikings career, he had 1,004 catches, 12,383 yards. And let's just take a look at his best seasons. His best season with Minnesota was in 1994 and 1995. He had 122 catches for 1,200 and 1,300 yards. And then in 1996, 96 catches for 1,100 yards. 1998, 78 catches for 1,000 yards. A very consistent 1,000-yard wide receiver for the Minnesota Vikings. And he's always near the 80s or 90s or 100s in terms of his catches for the Minnesota Vikings. So that's Cris Carter. He's got everyone beat in terms of how many years he played for the Minnesota Vikings. Let's take a look at Randy Moss. Randy Moss, his career with the Minnesota Vikings. He played for them for 8 years, and his dominance was felt immediately in the NFL. His rookie season, he had 69 catches for 1,300 yards. His second season, 80 catches for 1,400 yards. His third season, 77 catches for 1,400 yards. His 2001 season, fourth season, 82 catches for 1,200 yards. His fifth season in 2002, 106 catches for 1,400 yards. And his second to last season was 111 catches for 1,600 yards. And his last season for the Minnesota Vikings, he had 49 catches for 767 yards. A massive drop-off that year. Only played 13 games, so he must have gotten suspended or hurt. Can't quite remember. But as pure dominance goes, Randy Moss is or was better than Cris Carter. The ability that he had to take the top off the defense, draw 2 or 3 defenders, take that deep ball out. And another thing that Randy Moss did when he was younger was the quick screen explosive play down the field. He did it against the Cowboys his rookie season in that Thanksgiving game. And he did it multiple times throughout his Minnesota Vikings career too, where he caught a short pass and he just took off, went past the defense. And he didn't really do it that much with the Patriots or with Oakland, with the Niners, with the Titans. He just kind of was a deep ball guy to take the top off the defense. But as far as longevity goes, well, that goes to Cris Carter. So then you have to debate, what is more valuable, the longevity or just the pure dominance that Randy Moss had in 7 years or 8 years with the Minnesota Vikings? So the way I look at it is, if you had to pick a wide receiver for one game, a Super Bowl matchup against some random team in the NFL, are you taking Cris Carter or are you taking Randy Moss? And my answer is going to be Randy Moss, because of his pure ability to draw two defenders and to dominate the deep ball. You can score so quickly with Randy Moss. And Justin Jefferson is similar. Justin Jefferson has the ability to take the top off the defense. He draws 2 or 3 guys, which opens up so much more for opposing quarterbacks. Cris Carter was great. He's an awesome wide receiver for the Minnesota Vikings. But he was not as dominant as Randy Moss. So now, the real debate, in my opinion, is Justin Jefferson or Randy Moss. And Minnesota Vikings fans have a soft spot, a very special place for Randy Moss in their hearts, me included. Just look at this poster behind me. Randy Moss mooning the Green Bay Packer crowd. Straight cash, homie. He's got so many memorable moments in purple. Not always great moments, squirting the official with water. Other comments that weren't necessarily the most mature at the time, but memorable nonetheless. So we have to look at Justin Jefferson. Here's his stats for the Vikings so far in 5 years. His rookie season, 1,400 yards, 88 catches. His second season, 108 catches, 1,600 yards. His third season, 128 catches, 1,800 yards. Last season, in only 10 games, 68 catches, 1,000 yards. And so far this season for the Vikings, he's got 5 games played, 26 catches for 450 yards. This is the debate, and this is a real debate, because Justin Jefferson's numbers are hysterically good. And you do need to consider the time in which these guys played football, the eras. It's just like comparing LeBron James to Michael Jordan. Well, in LeBron's era, three-pointers were much more valued than Michael Jordan's era. So you can't necessarily take statistics entirely into the argument, because the game is played differently, just like Cris Carter. Cris Carter would have had way more catches in today's era. Randy Moss probably would have had more catches and more yards in today's era. Justin Jefferson is a benefactor of the passing game era right now in the NFL. So the way I look at it is Justin Jefferson and Randy Moss are similarly talented. Randy Moss was probably better on the deep ball, but Justin Jefferson was better in the midfield stuff, like streaking across the field, corner routes, stuff like that. Randy Moss could do jump balls. He could go deep. He could take short stuff and take it all the way down the field. Justin Jefferson, he doesn't quite have that quick burst that Randy Moss had, where he could just run past everybody. But I would say that his route running is way more crisp. He's way more fundamentally sound. And what you get with Justin Jefferson so far in his 5-year Minnesota Vikings career is the sensational wide receiving without the drama. He's had multiple times throughout his career where he could have stirred it up, sent out a cryptic tweet, and made life crappy for the Minnesota Vikings organization, the head coach, the quarterback, the general manager, the owner, all of that stuff. And he didn't do it one time, specifically with the contract negotiations. He didn't get his contract before last season. He didn't sit out. He didn't make comments. He said, we didn't get it done. We'll get it done next year. And the Minnesota Vikings got it done without a single worry or doubt or controversy from Justin Jefferson's team. You know, it takes one text or call from Justin Jefferson to send it over to his agent and say, you know what? Let's flip this thing on its head. Let's make this a drama situation so this contract gets done. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. Let's be that squeaky wheel. He didn't do that. Justin Jefferson was mature and handled it like a professional. And there was no drama. So because of that, because of the way Justin Jefferson handles business, and because of his similar numbers to Randy Moss, I'm going to pick Justin Jefferson as the best wide receiver in Minnesota Vikings history. Randy Moss, number 2, and Cris Carter, number 3.